In today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast, we are starting our playoff review, starting with franchise player Cade Cunningham. We're going to go through everything he did really well, things he has to improve on, he didn't do so well, and then we'll give our final thoughts on Cade Cunningham's first ever playoff series in today's episode, Locked On Pistons podcast. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I am your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. There's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Also, head to the description down below for the SUBSTACK, where we will be having a written analysis with film breakdown of Cade Cunningham's playoff review. You guys want that to go along with this podcast. That will be coming out tomorrow, so subscribe over there. You guys will get that to go along with this podcast. Also, subscribe to the Playback Room. We'll be having live watch parties with the rest of the playoffs for the other playoff teams, and also we'll have some content coming to you guys live over there throughout the offseason. But let's go ahead and get into today's episode. Today, we're starting our playoff reviews. Pistons in the playoffs. It's crazy to say that they had such a successful season after what we expected for this team coming into the year. It's still just, this has been just a great year for the Pistons. I'm going to say that probably on every podcast for weeks to come, because this truly was, even without a playoff series win, it was a special, special season for the Detroit Pistons. And we are going to start our playoff reviews with none other than the franchise player, Cade Cunningham. We're going to start off with things I really liked from his playoff debut. We'll go into some of the negatives from his playoff debut, and then I want to give my final thoughts on how he played in the playoffs and my thoughts moving forward with him in the playoffs. This is not to get confused with the season review. Season review will come later. We'll have everybody. Playoff review is only for the main rotational players. So, let's get into it. Cade Cunningham, positives. First thing I want to mention, because I feel like this really was on display every single game. It truly was something that was jumping off the page to me, or I guess jumping off the screen is a better way to say it. To me, every time I watched them in the playoffs, and I truly do believe that this has a large impact on the team, the franchise, and how they play on the court. His leadership was outstanding. I mean, he was their biggest cheerleader on the court. Go back. I'm about to have some of these film breakdown, or some of these clips on the film breakdown with the player review over on Substack, but multiple times when players do a great play or he misses it, like there was one play, he misses a shot, Jalen Duren kept going, he complained to the ref for a little bit, but then he turns around and sees Jalen Duren put it back, he's right there, up, giving him big ups, hyping him up. He was their biggest cheerleader while on the floor and was rallying everybody together. He never at any point to me looked like he was shook by the moment, shook by the lights or anything. He throughout from the opening tip to the end of the game, he consistently looked like that leader on the floor for you, like the guy that was rallying everyone together and was getting everyone in the best positions possible and wanting the best for them. So I really do believe that his leadership goes a long way. I don't think it should not go mentioned. The next thing is, I think this is where the Pistons will separate themselves from most other teams that have franchise players. Most teams, not every. Some teams have this as well. The Pistons will separate them with Cade from other teams, and you saw it in the playoffs, is the fact you have a legit 6'7", 6'6", guy, long wingspan, that isn't just an offensive engine, but is a legit impactful defender. Legit impactful defender. This is the route to the Pistons winning a title, building a sustainable contender, to Cade being an MVP type of player. This is the route right here. Because I don't think Cade, for a while now, I don't believe Cade's route is being Luka Doncic level, historically great offensively. I don't think Cade, as great as I think Cade is, I don't know if he has that ceiling in him. Offensively, it's just an offensive engine. I don't know if he has Luka Doncic or I guess Michael or Nikola Jokic kind of like offensive engine. That's not his route to being an MVP type player. His route to being an MVP type player is to be, I don't know, a top 10 offensive player, top 10 offensive engine in the league, somewhere around there. while also being, of those 10 best guys, our offensive engines, a top 5 defender as well. That's his route to being the Pistons' franchise savior, which he's already become. But like taking them to title contention for years to come, that is their route. And this is what he did in the playoffs. We'll talk about the rest of the numbers in just a minute, but 1.8 steals a game in 6 games and 1.3 blocks. He ended a game with 4 blocks in game 3 when they lost by 1 point. In a game that he was struggling shooting from the field until the second half, picked it up. But what he maintained doing was locked in defensively. Tremendous. I think Cade might be, depending on who you consider guards, a top 5 guard rim protector in the NBA. Weak side rim protector. It popped off the screen so many times how well Cade was, or how well Cade played as a weak side rim protector, how much that helped his teammates who were getting beat off the dribble, combining that with Asar, who will play more minutes next year. You have that with Cade and Asar at the guard spots as rim protectors, plus a Stu or Duran's improvement as a rim protector. That contributes to why the Pistons were so good defensively, because their best player is a really good defender and is capable of playing in the passing lanes, which evidenced by his 1.8 steals a game, but also evidenced by the fact he can protect the rim for you. If you want to go small, he can rotate down and protect the rim. And I think that was a huge reason why the Pistons had a chance to win this series. Cade's ability to be a legit defender, a legit impactful defender in this series, I think that is where you build this team moving forward. Cade will be able to I think he will be a top 10 offensive engine, but I don't think he'll be top 2. I think where he wins is I'm a top 10 offensive engine, and of these 10 guys, I'm one of only a handful that are legit impactful defensively. And I have size, and I have length. You can't pick on me in the playoffs. And I can legit make impactful plays while also going back in the offensive end and making you pay. That's where Cade will make his day, make his payday. That's where he will win awards, titles. That's where it comes from. So that's the next thing I want to mention. The other thing is this. We'll talk about this in his negatives, so I won't spend too much time on it, but the efficiency aside, Cade, in the playoffs, Cade put up numbers. And I do believe, some people may disagree, I do believe that in the playoffs, you need productivity. You want efficiency as well. You need efficiency. But you also very much need, sometimes it's screw that, you need production. And in these playoffs, Cade averaged 25, 8.7 assists, 8.3 rebounds, 1.8 steals, and 1.3 blocks. He was doing everything for the Detroit Pistons, everything. He was heavily impactful on the boards. The Pistons knew they were overmatched talent-wise. They knew they were overmatched size-wise on the wings. And guess what? Your franchise player, not just giving you all offensively, he gets down the dirty work, gets down the glass, gives it everything you can, everything he has on the glass to help you win that battle. He had 2 games of 10-plus rebounds. He had a triple-double in his first playoff series. He was creating for his teammates nonstop, just like we saw all year with him, creating for his teammates. And if his three-point shooters were hitting shots, he probably is averaging a double-double in this series. If his three-point shooters were hitting their threes, he probably is averaging a double-double in this series, in his first ever playoff series. That is just the fact of the matter. He was in the first round, he was in the top 3 in touches per game. He led an enormous load for the Detroit Pistons, and yes, they lost in 6, but they lost by 2 points, 1 point, 3 points, 3 points, 6 points, or they won by 6, but lost by 2, lost by 1, lost by 3, lost by 3, while carrying such an enormous load for the Detroit Pistons, giving it your all offensively, being their only creator offensively, while then also giving it everything defensively and impacting on that end, while putting up numbers that you haven't seen from a guy at his age since Oscar Robertson. His playoff debut was not perfect, but you saw why he is the franchise player and why the Pistons are in good hands for the next 7+ years, because they have a player like this who can handle the load, give it everything offensively, give it everything defensively, be impactful on both ends, has size, has length, wasn't shook by the moment. Not any moment. He may have missed shots. Not one time did it look like to me, outside, I guess, maybe game 1. Game 1 fair. Outside of game 1 in the fourth quarter, I didn't see Cade look like he was afraid of the bright lights. He looked composed, a leader from the get-go. From the get-go. Combined with everything else we mentioned, I really think this is a really good debut for a guy who is just leading a 14-win team, who is 23 years old, who debuted into the playoffs with no other creator on his team and his three-point shooters going completely ice cold for the majority of the series. This was a really good series by Cade Cunningham. Really good. And he gave it everything he had. And the last thing I'll mention with it, actually it's a two-part, but it's quick. Very quick two-parter. One, he got to the free throw line 7 times a game. I think that's really good to see for his playoff success moving forward. That's way more than he averaged in the regular season. Remember, that's something we've complained about forever. He averaged 5.3 in the regular season, got it to 7.0 in the playoffs. I think that could be big for him moving forward. I thought he was learning more in the playoffs how to deal with physicality and how to sell the physicality. I thought he did a much better job in the playoffs than he did in the regular season. So that was good to see. The other thing that I really want to point out, I do believe, and this is going to come up in the negatives, I do think Cade's going to be up late some nights thinking about some of the shots that he missed in Game 5 and in Game 6. Or not Game 5. Game 4 and Game 6. I do think he's going to be up late in some of those games because of some of those games. I also think, though, that he came through to get the Pistons a win with a 33-point game in Game 2 to keep the series alive, winning at New York. And then in Game 4, came through, or Game 5, to extend the Pistons season and keep them from being eliminated. Had 13 points in the fourth quarter on a game that he was struggling from quarters 1 to 3. Came through in the fourth quarter, 13 points, and closed the deal. It wasn't perfect. He had some shots that maybe he would like back in some games. But there was also games where he did come through in the fourth quarter and kept it, and not just in the fourth quarter, but for an entire game when the stakes were on the line. He didn't bat 1,000. But damn it, he batted, what do they call it, 333 or something, 353? I don't know much about baseball, but something like that. I play MLB enough to know that that's decent. I think that's actually pretty good. But you get what I'm saying. Overall, I think this was a really good series from Cade. He can only get better. And coming up, we'll talk about the areas where I think he has to get better and where he struggled with in his first ever playoff series. We'll talk about that coming up. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps you find affordable, top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. Posting a job is free and simple. Within a day, multiple qualified candidates you'll have to choose from. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today with Upwork.com. Then I got to tell you guys about another one of our sponsors, Game Time. I went to Game Time for each one of the home games that I went to, where I went to right there. Game Time was tremendous. Helped you see the view from your seat within the app. You also get $20 off your first purchase by using code LOCKEDONNBA. You know that I used that. It was tremendous. You get great deals. You get tickets and great deals until the last minute of the event. Game 6, I didn't know if I was going to need to buy a ticket. Didn't know if I was going to be credentialed. Didn't know if I was going to need to buy a ticket. I waited literally until the final 2 hours before I bought my wife her ticket to go to the game, and I got a tremendous price. Was able to use the $20 off using Locked On NBA, and she had a tremendous time. She was able to go through each seat possible and see exactly what it would look like and choose the best one for her experience in her first ever playoff setting. So Game Time is where I go. Absolutely love it. You guys would absolutely love it as well. Make sure you guys are checking out Game Time. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time, like I said. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed with Game Time. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. Head to the description down below for the Substack, where I'll have a written analysis with a film breakdown of Cade Cunningham's first playoff series to tag along with this podcast. That should be coming out midday tomorrow. When I say tomorrow, midday Thursday. We also have a really special guest coming on the podcast tomorrow. You guys are going to love this one. Someone we haven't had on the podcast before. You guys aren't going to be able to guess it, but I think you guys are really going to like it. And also, check out the Playback Room. Subscribe over there. Appreciate all of you guys. All right. It's really hot in here, man. So let me just give you guys a personal, before we keep going, I just want to tell you guys something real quick. So my wife, who will probably listen to this, my wife is gone for the next 5 days for a school event. And she begged me to keep the AC or keep the conditioning, the air unit off, whatever. Because it's hot outside. You can just open the window. Guys, I literally had to chop up the podcast just now because right before I started this, I had to get up and go turn the AC on. Came back and I just cut it out. Like, it's too hot. Absolutely. I need to know from you guys. Do you guys agree? Do you guys turn the AC on even? Do you guys just open the windows or do you guys turn the AC on? It's too hot for me. 72 is too much. I got that set to 66. It's too hot in here. Let me get a drink of water because I'm dying. All right, let's go ahead and Cades Negatives. You guys let me know in the comments, though. All right, like I said, this wasn't a perfect playoff series for Cade. There's definitely areas to grow, areas he can get better at, and I just want everyone, before we get into all of them, understand that this is his first playoff series. He's 23. This was his first playoff series, and understand the context of the team he's playing with. He's the only creator. So I understand discussing these negatives like we're about to do and going through and breaking it down. That's all fine. But some of the leaps I'm seeing, not a lot of people, but some people make with this whole Cade wasn't him in the playoffs. I don't know. Is he really that dude? I think that's absolutely, utterly ridiculous and flat out dumb. So with that said, let's get into it. The first number one thing off the top that has to get talked about, his efficiency was not up to par at all. And like I said in the first segment, I value productivity in the playoffs, being able to put up numbers and impact the game. I don't think it's all about efficiency, but if you can match both, that's what the legends do. And Cade just wasn't efficient enough in the playoffs. A lot of time was spent on his three-point shooting, which definitely hurt him a ton. He had a 51 true shooting percentage in the playoffs, which is not good. That goes from, he went from a 56.5 true shooting percentage, which is, honestly, you take that. I think that's around just above league average this year. And by far a career high for him. He was great during the regular season, but when he got to the playoffs, efficiency dropped off, which it does for some players. Most players, actually, throughout history, aren't as efficient in the playoffs because it gets more physical and it slows down. And in these playoffs, I talked about this chart over on the Playback Room in Game 5. These playoffs, I forget who, I don't know if it was Kirk Goldberry or if it was Thinking Basketball, but they put out a chart that was showing each year how much the pace has dropped off from the regular season to the playoffs. And it's dropped off almost every year from regular season to playoffs, but not as much as maybe you would think. It doesn't like just crash. This year it crashed. This year I think it was the largest drop-off in pace since 1999, which had a lot to do with the physicality and how much the refs were allowing guys to play with that physicality without fouling. So I think that should be something to take into account when you talk about players' efficiency, not just Cade, but everyone's this playoff series. But Cade's efficiency has to be much better. He shot 17% from deep. Absolutely unacceptable. Not going to be able to win with that. I thought that with the way the Knicks were guarding Cade, and we'll talk about this a lot in the film breakdown as well, the hedge gap pull-up three was open a lot throughout the series. And if you don't know what the hedge gap three is, the Pistons were running pick and roll with their shooters a lot, right? We talked about this in the podcast. We talked about this a lot with the film breakdowns over on Substack. They were using shooters in the screen and roll to get Jalen Brunson in the pick and roll. And the way the Knicks were guarding that was Brunson would hedge, show, and then get back to the shooter. The hedge gap is where that little bit of space that creates for you when the shooter, let's say Brunson, is trying to run back to a shooter and then OG's recovering. Because there's that split second, that little gap that shooters can take advantage of if you show against them and just try to get back, that you can walk into a pull-up three without a heavy contest. And in Game 5, I believe, he closed the game out, or really hit a dagger in Game 5 with one of those hedge gap threes in the fourth quarter and kind of just extend the league, and that was it. That was open for a majority of the series. And you could tell in the final game, when he didn't hit a single three, that he kind of lost confidence in his three ball. He completely lost confidence of it, and he wasn't going to that at all. And therefore, the Knicks stopped even showing against him. They started going under the screen in Game 6. They started not even trapping screens. They just started going under because they knew that he had lost confidence in his three ball, and he wasn't making them pay. That has to improve. I think that is, I don't know if his three ball is so much like it's not that bad. Let's be honest. We watched him the whole season. He shot 35.6% from three. He rode hot and cold stretches throughout the year. We saw improvements in his pull-up shooting throughout the year. He's not a 17% three-point shooter. I don't think anyone thinks that. But he has to become an even better three-point shooter throughout the season and be ready to deliver that in this postseason. Whether that's because of his conditioning, because of the load he was carrying, either way, he has to get much more consistent with his three ball because it was even inconsistent during the regular season. That's what unlocks his superstardom, his ability to be a three-level scorer. And his three-point shot completely betrayed him in the postseason, and it was a large reason why the Pistons weren't able to win this series. If he is shooting 35% from deep, they win this series. They absolutely win this series if he shoots 35%. So that was a big takeaway from me, that his three-point shooting just let him down and betrayed him in the playoffs. The other thing is, Cade, I don't know exactly what is the right way to work with this. And Sam Vecini on his podcast with Bryce Simon, who hosts also Pistons Pulse podcast with Omari Sankofa II, Sam came on our podcast and talked about this. I don't know how to best fix this or make it better for Cade. He had a few drives at the end of these games that could have been so much easier on him, but he made the drive harder. There was times throughout the series where it felt like, okay, he got that step, he's going to get to the basket, and he kind of just made the finish harder on himself. I don't know if it's so much I think footwork has something to do with it. I also just don't know if he fully realizes like how big and long he is. I don't think he truly realizes how long his wingspan is. And the fact that all he needs is a slight step and he'll be able to finish at the rim. Oftentimes he would fade away from the rim. Like we talked about this at the end of Game 6. He had a few finishes at the rim where instead of just going straight finish at the rim, he kind of faded away and made it like a tough leaner runner kind of thing. His finishing has to get vastly better. It was a struggle during the season, but it got even more exposed in the playoffs, especially against some of the defense that the Knicks were playing against them, especially with how crowded the lane was. It was forced for him to have to attempt even harder finishes, and because of those struggles at the rim, he just wasn't able to have much of an efficient series. So three-point shooting has to become more consistent, and his finishing at the rim, I think, is by far the number one area he must work on, this offseason. Not just for the playoffs, but for his entire career. He has to become a much better finisher than he's been so far. Now, he should be able to. He has great touch on his runners. He has great touch in the post on hook shots. He has the length. He has the size. He should be a really good finisher. I just don't think sometimes he realizes his size and doesn't really utilize it to his advantage. And I also think his footwork sometimes, where he could just take one more dribble or go off same foot, same hand. Some of those things, once he learns that, I think he'll be fine. But that was an area that I think really hurt him in this playoff series and was part of the reason why he was so inconsistent efficiency-wise throughout the series. And then the final thing I'm gonna talk about, I don't really have anything to say about his defense. I thought he was really good defensively. The other thing I would say, I've said this multiple times in this podcast, I'm going to continue to say it again. Turnovers are always going to be something that you deal with when you have these high-usage players like a Cade. If you look at the top turnover leaders in the NBA, it's all high-usage superstars. That's who it's going to be. Turnovers come with it when you have a high-usage player. There's a line you can cross, and Cade crossed it quite a bit in these playoffs. 5.3 turnovers is way too much. There was another chart I looked at that showed all the high-usage players, the top 10 guys. I believe outside Cade, the highest one was at 3.7. You can deal with that. 3.7 it's a lot, but you can deal. 3.7's, I don't want to say fine because it makes it seem like turnovers don't matter, but for a high usage guy, you can, like, 3.7's okay. Like, you can deal with that. 5.3 is way, way, way too much. And especially at the time of some of these turnovers, they really killed the Pistons. I think his ball handling has a lot to do with it. Some of his drives, he just gets the ball poked loose. I actually think he got a lot better with that this past year, but it still can get better. He got a lot more stronger on his drives. You can see how much stronger he actually is. So I do think he already has improved on that a little bit, but he could get even better. Some of the sloppy turnovers he has, some of them he just throws lackadaisical turnovers that when I did a breakdown on him a few weeks ago, I believe a lot of it comes from that he thinks that because of his length that he can just fit a pass over somebody and kind of just throws it lazily because he thinks he can just get it there and he's not really concerned. And then a guy just puts his hands up and knocks it away. I think sometimes he's just lazy with it, and I think that's correctable. I think sometimes he puts too much stock into the fact I'm bigger than you, so I'm going to throw this pass over you. I think that hurts him sometimes. And then other times, I think he's going for the home run play a little too much. We broke this down after game 2 with the Knicks trapping Cade. There was a lot of times he was trying to hold onto the ball just a little bit longer to hold the tagging defender with his eyes so he can hit Dern on the roll instead of just making that cross-court skip pass to whatever shooter they're tagging off of. Now, it's worked. He's gotten multiple times throughout the series. He was able to get a guy with his eyes and manipulate the pass to get Dern a look. But sometimes in some situations, it's better to just get the ball out your hands quick and make the easy pass. Not every time has to be that home run pass. And I think that contributes to some of his turnovers as well. And that was something I saw a lot, especially early in the series against this Knicks trapping. I thought he was trying to he held onto the ball too much against the trap early in the series, I thought, because he was trying to diagnose things and kind of trying to make a home run play and, like I said, manipulate defenders instead of just immediately getting the ball in his hands quickly and then letting his teammates attack 4 and 3, which I thought you saw them do a lot better in the final 3 games, which he was getting the ball in his hands a lot quicker, and their offense, I thought, looked a lot better process-wise. So I think that has a lot to do with his turnovers, but nonetheless, he struggled with turnovers throughout his career. You can take high turnovers from high usage guys, but 5.3 is way, way too much. And I truly think that some of his turnovers really did hurt the Pistons a lot, especially in the fourth quarter. So those are the areas I think he has to improve on. Let me know, comment section down below if you guys agree, disagree. Are there any other areas that I've pointed out, or that I did not point out, that you guys would like to bring up for him moving forward based off his last playoff series? But coming up, I'm going to give my final thoughts on Cade this playoff series and how I feel about him moving forward. We'll talk about that coming up. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had an urgent need, maybe for a plumber or a service provider. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. You moved on, and that's why you need OpenPhone. OpenPhone's the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. OpenPhone lets me manage business calls and text from a single app. The shared inbox feature is a game changer. Your team can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat. OpenPhone is offering my listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonnba. That's openphone.com/lockedonnba. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers with OpenPhone. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. So I want to give my final thoughts on Cade's playoff series. You guys know also description down below for all that stuff. Stay tuned for the Substack, the film breakdown and written analysis coming to you guys tomorrow for Cade's playoff review. My final thoughts on Cade. I thought this was by far a vastly successful playoff series for Cade Cunningham. Was he perfect? Absolutely not. Does he have things that he can improve on? Absolutely. However, that should be looked at as a positive for Pistons fans, not as a negative. Part of the sell with Cade and part of the sell of this Pistons young core and the future of the Pistons is that Cade's already this good, but he can be so much better. Cade's already this good at 23, but he clearly has areas he can still get much better at. And that he's going to get much better at. He's nowhere close to his prime, and he's already this good. This should be looked at as a positive. That shouldn't be looked at as a negative, as in, oh, Cade's not, why is he not good enough yet? Do they need to go somewhere? Like, I don't understand how anybody, TJ Lang included, I don't know how anybody can look at this playoff series and not come away vastly, vastly impressed and feeling good about the future. And every star I can think of in the history of the league goes through their bumps early in their career. Everyone goes through their bumps early on. It's not, rare for a young guy to show up in the playoffs and not be perfect. That happens. So I am feeling great about Cade moving forward. I'm feeling great about him as the franchise player moving forward. I think his ability to be a legit impactful two-way player will make the Detroit Pistons different. And that's their way to presenting themselves as an NBA title contender moving forward, is that they have two-way guys and they can't get picked on in the playoffs because their best player can't get picked on. I think that is the Pistons' route, and I feel even better about that after the playoffs. And I feel even better, like I mentioned earlier, that Cade is this good and he has so much more he can still get better at. And I mentioned this in the first segment. He didn't bat 1,000 in the clutch, but he came through multiple times in the clutch. He came through in Game 2. He came through in Game 5. He's going against, and I guess maybe me included, the media, people who cover the team nationally, I think maybe they set him up for a little bit more backlash than, I don't want to say he's getting backlash. It's not a lot of backlash, but from some people, the backlash that's coming to him, because so many people tried saying that he was better than Brunson. Even me, I said that he could be the best player in this series. And Brunson just showed that he is better right now than Cade. He is a better player right now than Cade Cunningham. And that's not a bad thing. Cade's 23, Brunson's 28, 29. He's been in the play. He's had so much more experience. And he's going against Brunson, who is probably the best fourth quarter player in the entire NBA. So the fact he wasn't able to outduel Brunson in the fourth quarter is not something that is going to, weigh me down on his future. He'll get there. He'll get there. He showed up at times in this series. He didn't bat 1,000, but he did show up at times. And as a 23-year-old player, I think that's all you can ask for right now. And the fact that the Pistons went 6 games in a playoff series against a much more talented team than them, and were able to have a real belief that after the series, they probably still think they should have won, and it's not a crazy thing to think, that has a lot to do with Cade. A ton to do with Cade and his ability to impact the game on both ends of the floor. So I feel great about Cade's future. I felt really good about his playoff debut, and I think he's going to get much better. He has things to work on. He'll work on them. He works on every single one of his weaknesses every single year. I trust that he and his team will work on his weaknesses. But I felt really good about his playoffs debut, and I think everyone should as well. Let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter @KukaHill. How you guys feel about Cade Cunningham's debut in the playoffs? What did he need to work on? What were you impressed by? All that, comment section down below or over on Twitter @KukaHill. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. Check the description down below for the SUBSTACK and the Playback Room. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there. And until next time, peace out.